If we're not present, we think we feel like having to talk. Not because I want to ask.
You're getting smarter.
We'll go with the place.
Ready on to here? Okay. Good evening and welcome to Seaford Board of Education meeting for May the 15th. Glad to see everybody here tonight, all smiling faces. We had the pictures taken. We're even smiling in that. All right, moving on, the approval of the agenda. You've all had a chance to look at that. Recommended action is to approve the agenda as presented.
Yes.
Marcus Sardo to approve the agenda.
It's been moved and second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And the time we came in was 6 p.m. I forgot to say that. All right, let's stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let's take a moment of silence, please. Thank you. You may be seated. Item 4 is approval of minutes for April 17th, 2023. All were present. So all can vote. Recommended action. Something's wrong. Thank you. Recommended action is to approve the minutes for April the 17th of 2023 public board meeting.
This is Darren Savage. I move we accept the minutes for April 17th, 2023 board meeting as presented. Kim Hopkins, I second.
It's been moved and second to approve the minutes of April 17th, 2023 board public meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item 5 is 5.01 is public participation forums. Mrs. Massey.
I did not receive any public.
All right, thank you so much. So we'll move on since there are no forms. And we'll move to reports and presentations. 6.01 is awards and presentations. And I will turn it over to Dr. Nicholas.
Great, thank you. So we do have 2 awards tonight that we would like to give out. And actually the first one, we know this individual was not able to be here tonight, but Ms. Kirby wanted us to highlight Lance Massey from Harbor House for the use of refrigerated trailers at West Seaford Elementary and Frederick Douglass Elementary School when our freezers were not operational. So they've been a big help for us. And I know that that is something that really, you know, when your freezers go down, that makes everybody nervous. We need to get that food taken care of. So they've really been a great partner of ours. So again, we want to highlight that. The second award is actually going to be going to Dr. Kelly Carvajal Hagan. And last Friday, she was actually recognized at the University of Delaware. And on behalf of the Welfare Committee and the School of Education, she was awarded the second Mile Award. And that award is given to an individual in recognition and appreciation of exemplary support and service to the field of education. This award is given to someone in the state or region, possibly including someone in the School of Ed who has made a notable contribution to education. Congratulations.
Speech.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Very sure.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You like product, right?
Well, today, no. No, I tried
Surprises are great.
to not let people know about my stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that's the awards I have.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Nichols. All right, 6.02, we'll have superintendent's communication, so I'll turn it back over to Dr. Nichols.
All right. I do want to share with the board that actually in April, the NAM Foundation, which is the National Association of Music Merchants, named Seaford School District one of the best communities for music education in the country. So did want to share that. I know that's been posted, but that's a great award because we really value the arts. Okay. Also, we've been talking about this and we've been working on trying to get our wellness center up at Frederick Douglass for a while. And it's great that I'm able to announce that we've actually started seeing some students there. So, and we received actually an email from a parent who just really expressing gratitude for having that open. They weren't sure how they're going to be able to get their child to a doctor because they had to run a different direction. So it's already paying off for us, and the construction is moving along. Mr. Henry, I know they're making some really good progress there, which is great.
Yeah, they're making good time right now.
Yeah.
This HVAC equipment slowed down a little bit, but interior part of the walls are up, electric ran. They finished HVAC in today or tying today. So basically to the children and stuff like that. So it's moving along.
And just to publicly thank Mrs. Lovely and her staff support, because anytime you have to do construction during the school year, it brings more challenges. But I just want to thank them for all their work and helping us through that. Also, last week, the district was able to celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week. So I know the schools had a lot of really cool events going on for teachers. And even though, you know, it's a week out of the year, we celebrate them. The reality is the work they do is amazing. We're lucky to have our teachers, and I didn't want to highlight them publicly. At the end of April, we also had Secretary Holiday come and visit the district. We spoke for a while at the district office, and next thing you know, we ran out of time. We had all sorts of plans to visit a lot of schools, but we only got over to West Seaford, but he said he will be back. So we're happy about that. Last week, I had my parent advisory meeting, and actually Mr. Zoll joined me in that meeting because two of the topics we really wanted to share. You'll hear one tonight about start times next year. So we want to share that with the parent advisory group. But we also started going through our student code of conduct. And Mr. Zoll has been working with district staff. He's been working with other parents, but we're trying to get this information out to as many people as possible to get as much feedback before we look to implement anything. We also introduced some other topics that provided a lot of conversation. One of them was around the use of cell phones in schools with our students. We also talked about dress code at length. So, you know, the reason we have these meetings is to really just to have parents weigh in on district activities, whether it be policy, regulation, national trends or events. And it's always good to get feedback. And actually some of the parents email me throughout the course of the year to hear their feedback, because I may have 10 people in the group, those 10 speak to another 10, and then that spreads in the community. And then last, I know we're aware of this, but graduation will be June 2nd, Friday night. We're looking forward to that. I know a lot of meetings have been taking place. And graduation and the bridge ceremony brings a lot of people out in the district. And our focus is on having a great event for our students, but also making sure it's done in a safe and orderly way. So our constables are heavily involved in these conversations, along with maintenance staff and others, just to make sure we're able to put on these events in a safe setting. And they're the updates I have for you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nichols, for those updates. Communications. All right, moving on to board communications. I have 3 items I need to address tonight. One is the legislative committee meeting that I attended on April 26th. The second will be the board of directors meeting that I had on May 3rd. And then the third item will be the board self-evaluation that we filled out this past week. And I apologize before I start. This might take a little bit of time. There's a lot of information that I have to cover. In legislative committee, we had a lot of bills that we had to review on that committee. So that meeting was, as I said, was on April 26th. The first thing we did, we previously authorized legislative positions were briefly reviewed on ones that we had talked about in previous meetings, and the status of those bills were provided. Then the committee reviewed current legislation as follows. And the House bills that we reviewed were this. House Bill 63. This bill allows pensioners to earn $50,000 instead of $40,000 before incurring a $1 deduction in their state pension for every $2 earned over that amount. The committee voted to support House Bill 63. House Bill 66. This bill is to amend Title 14 of the Delaware Code relating to Delaware public education profiles, which are available as the Delaware report card. Given the partisan nature, the committee voted to deferral of action unless it begins to move. Because John said there were some questions about whether that was even going to move any further than where it was. House Bill 81. This bill relates to the charter school student transportation. It clarifies district authority to deny charter requests to have school district to transport students residing in that district. If a district denies the request, the charter receives payment from the state. Committee voted to support House Bill 81. House Bill 88. This bill relates to candidates for school board. It clarifies that an individual who meets the filing deadline for candidates for school board election are provisional candidates until the commissioner determines if that individual is eligible to be a candidate and requires the commissioner to disclose the names of those provisional candidates. We asked for this bill. The committee voted to support House Bill 88. One thing I'd like to clarify on that is, since a background check has to be taken, and sometimes there's a lag in between when that happens and when you file. This past year and the year before, they did not publish the names until everything was cleared. And that shortens the time that people know who is running for school board. And it also doesn't give the candidates enough time to campaign, so to speak, I guess, too. So the committee voted to support House Bill 88. House Bill 96. This bill relates to the voting in school elections. It reduces the eligible age of a citizen to vote in school board elections from 18 years old. The committee views this bill as unconstitutional. The committee voted strongly to oppose House Bill 96. They want to change the voting age only to school board elections. They don't want to bother any of their elections. They don't want that change. They just want the school board to change. House Bill 116. This bill relates to advanced placement examinations. This act requires public institutions of higher learning to grant credit for advanced placement examination scores of 3 or higher. The committee voted to support House Bill 116. House Bill 127. This bill relates to county fire protection fees. This act provides each county with the ability to impose, by duly enacted ordinance, a fire protection fee. The committee wants the bill to exclude buildings with fire alarms and/or sprinkler systems. The committee voted to oppose House Bill 127, but Dr. Marinucci may suggest a compromise amendment if the language is warranted. House Bill 3. This bill relates to school attendance. This bill provides for excused absences for mental or behavioral health of a student. It upserts local authority and control. There was also concern over its negativity impacting delinquency policies, and all agreed, though, the need to support students' mental health and emotional health, but the committee was concerned about how the bill did it. The committee voted to oppose House Bill 3.
And to clarify, we were very clear that we support the general nature of the bill. But for one, we oppose anything that disturbs local authority, like from just in general. But we support the general nature of the bill, but the way they go about it, the bill is wrong. And we are actually working with the sponsor of that bill to make it a more workable bill.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wright. House Bill 4. This bill relates to mental health services for school trauma. This bill is to provide more behavioral health supports to schools in the aftermath of a school-connected traumatic event. Committee voted to support contingent upon districts retaining local authority. Also, that there would be state funds attached to the services to be provided through the bill, and the term traumatic event definition be expanded beyond strictly death.
Since our meeting that has changed, that amendment has been placed with the bill. There is a financial note attached to it. So if there is a traumatic incident, the district would be getting financial support. In addition to that, the definition of a traumatic event has changed because the way it was written originally, a traumatic event was considered the death of a student, staff member, or something like that. But I was like, there could be a school shooting and nobody died, and that's still a very traumatic event, and there still needs to be support. So that definition has changed as well.
All right, the 10th bill is House Bill 10. This bill relates to the reimbursement of school-based behavioral health services. This bill will charge the Department of Health and Social Services to apply for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services for the state plan amendment that will allow for reimbursement of medically necessary behavioral health services without an IEP or an IFSP documentation. The committee voted to support House Bill 10. House Bill 200. This bill relates to school-based mental health services. This bill is for high school, similar to the bill passed earlier for elementary and middle schools. The committee voted to support House Bill 200. Then in that meeting, we moved to the Senate bills, and they were reviewed, and the positions were as follows. Senate Bill 60. This bill relates to school employment leave, example, to serve on a jury. Bill is awaiting governor's signature. We had opposed the bill earlier because it usurps local authority and local control. But it's passed and it's waiting to be signed when we were at the meeting. So that's House Bill 60. Senate Bill 60. Senate Bill 61. This bill relates to absences of school employees. This bill provides changes where employees may only use 3 days of sick leave for personal reasons to 5 days. Committee voted to oppose because the bill usurps local authority / control. And then the final Senate bill was Senate Bill 67. This bill relates to misconduct by public officials. This act updates the crime of an official misconduct to ensure appropriate accountability of public servants who abuse their positions of power and public trust. Committee voted to support Senate Bill 67. And that's what we covered at that legislative committee meeting on April the 26th. And the next legislative committee meeting, when we will update some of those that Mr. Wright pointed out to us. The next legislative committee meeting is May the 31st. All right, moving on to the Board of Directors. That meeting was held on May the 3rd. That meeting started with the adoption of the agenda. Briefs for meeting of minutes were approved in the treasurer's report. In the treasurer's report, DSBA is in great financial stability, and revenue and expenses are in line with budgeted expectations. Dr. Marinucci provided bank statements for DSBA's reserve fund, and DSBA's legal fund were shared with the board of directors. Then we moved into committee reports. The executive director referenced his report. It was discussed briefly. Then the legislative committee report was given, which were on all these bills that I just talked about in the legislative committee. There was a brief discussion around House Bill 96 that was concern of a lot of the board of directors. But, and we were informed at that meeting that that bill had been tabled. So we wrote opposition letters on Monday. We found on Wednesday that at this meeting that they had tabled that. That doesn't mean it might not come back out, but for right now, we have put a stop to that particular bill. And then the board of directors agreed and approved all the minutes for the legislative committee. Because by our bylaws, the board of directors has to approve what we do in the legislative committee. In old business, there was a brief discussion on the 2023 National School Board Association Annual Conference that was in Orlando. And then in second item in old business, fiscal year 24 operating budget was discussed. DSBA and joint finance comments are centered around that 26 million give back quote that was imposed back in fiscal year 81. Sorry to say, it continues to be in effect, but we're still trying. Fiscal year 21 capital budget and market pressure funds were discussed, and it was pointed out that this is a very difficult problem also. And then we also talked a little about the Public Education Compensation Commission and the GRB, 3% and 6% raises were discussed. There is currently tension between groups here to who specifically is going to receive those raises. And then the board was promised an update on the executive director selection. The executive leadership team has conducted one interview, but since I wrote these, we have conducted a second, but no decision has come out yet. So that is to replace Dr. Marinucci as the executive director. And then Dr. Marinucci provided a brief update regarding the volunteer school assessment bill. That will enable but not mandate the Newcastle County DSA systems and structure to be implemented in Kent and Sussex County. Then we moved on to new business. The first item under new business was the 2023 DSBA district dues calculation. Dr. Marinucci informed us, of course, the leadership team already knew the dues is going to be held constant with no increase in dues. The only increase that a district might see is because of their unit count might have increased over the last year. And the board approved those dues. DSBA 2023 proposed budget of revenue and expenses was presented. It was pointed out the only item in that budget line that might be changing is contingent upon what the final salary agreement might be for the new executive director. But that proposed budget was approved by the board of directors. Then the board of directors also approved our DSBA's meeting schedule for next year. When the legislative committees will meet and when the board of directors will meet. Also, Dr. Marinucci pointed out to the board of directors that it's in the planning to have the 2023 new board member boot camp. It will be held on July the 8th of 2023 at Capital School District Administrative Offices. Then it was also informed to the board of directors, there was another class action suit similar to the Jules class action that we were participants in. This one is the social media class action suit. But DSBA itself is not going to do that. We're leaving that up to the individual districts to look into that class action suit. And number 6 on a new business, there was a request recently by a legislator for school districts to modify their websites to include additional information about school board candidates and the respective terms. DSBA supports local authority and control over such decisions and actions. And then in other business, there was the nominations for the 2023-24 DSBA offices. Those nominated were Ralph Ackerman, president from Brandywine, Janice Hanwell, first vice president from Cape, and Marcel Hayes, second vice president from Sussex Tech, and myself from Seaford for treasurer and legislative committee chair. Those nominations were closed, but there was a contingent on that because it all based on what happened last week, and they will have to come back in the June meeting and open up the nominations again because I will not be able to serve on DSBA. So they will open up elections again and vote on those nominations at the next meeting, which is June the 7th. And that is the report for the board of directors. Does anybody have any questions on either one of those reports before I move on? Knowledge, you have a copy of in your folder or on top of the folder when you came in. That consists of 4 sheets. There's a bar graph. There's a data information sheet, and then the actual spreadsheet that shows how we all answered with no names on there, of course. You cannot tell who voted how when we filled out and submitted that online. So looking at the bar graph first, all categories for this year, as you can see, are between 3 and 4. So remember, the ranking goes from 1 to 4, as far as from unsatisfactory to excellent. The highest category this year was category G, personnel qualities, and that was 3.69 average. The second highest you can see on that bar graph was A, relationship with superintendent, which was 3.67. And the third highest this year was category F with 3.60 average, and that was relationship to financial management in public school. The lowest category was E, relationship to the instructional program. That average was 3.23. But as you can see, they're all above 3 or in between 3 and 4. Now, also using the bar graph, if you look at the second sheet, you'll see a breakdown of the last 5 years of how we have answered this evaluation. All the way over to the right, of course, it's this year's numbers. Back to the left, it's last year, and all the way back to 2018, 2019. If you just take a general look at those, they've all kind of been consistent. But the categories this year, A, B, F, and G increased this year over last year. Category C, D, and E decreased this year over last year, if you look at the numbers. With category C only changing by 0.02 of a point from last year. Category D only changed 0.03 of a point. And category E, which was the most changed by 0.12 of a point. From last year's report, remember I reported we needed to work on category A, relationship with the superintendent, because it was the lowest last year. You can see that it went from 3 from last year to 3.67 this year. Now, if we'll go to the data spreadsheet for the 62 items that are on the self-evaluation form, using your data results, you can see categories with no unsatisfactory or needs improvement rankings for categories A, F, and G. These categories with all 3s or 4s from each of you. Category A, again, is relationship with the superintendent. F was relationship with the financial management of schools, and G was personnel qualities. Then if you look also, you'll see categories that needs improvement were categories B, community relationships, category C, board meeting, category D, staff and personnel relationship, and category E, relationship and instructional program. These categories with some rankings of 2 means there are 14 items that have a 2, which means it needs improvement. In other words, 14 items out of the 62 items deserve a 2. There were also only 2 items that received a 1 for unsatisfactory, and that was C1, board meetings, and E7, relationship to instructional programs. Now, out of those 16 items, you'll notice that I've circled certain ones in red. Everyone see those?
Yep.
B3, B6, C1, E8, and E7, which are all the ones with the lowest average on that item. Like B3 was 2.8 average from all of those. B6 was 3, C1 was 2.6, E8 was 3, and E7 was 2.8. Out of those 16 items, I suggest us as a board definitely needs to discuss, evaluate, and have a plan, a strategy to improve on those following items, 5 items. That's not to say we can't discuss in a workshop or board retreat, but we need to look at those and try to figure out what we're doing wrong and how we can correct it. Okay? And I'm challenging us to do at least those 5 items. Remember, there are 16 that are below a 3.
Mm-hmm.
So in summary, the board's overall effectiveness relative to the categories in the self-evaluation are positive, and all categories are rated well above 3. The board needs to work on category E, relationship to instructional program, because it was the lowest category this year. But there are a few other items in some categories that have ratings of 2 or lower, and the board needs to take this data and build strategies or a plan to improve in those areas or items. Overall, I am very happy with the data and results. It shows that we are all working for the same reasons, making sure our priorities and goals are for the students in the Seaford School District, and we're here for the success for all students. That is my report on that self-evaluation. Does anybody have any questions?
No, thank you.
All right, that finishes my report. As I said, I apologize in the beginning. It was going to be a little long, but it's all important things. So we will move on to the next item, which is a presentation or a report on policy ADC, tobacco-free schools, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Zoll.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
As Dr. Nicholas said earlier, we're hard at work on updating a student handbook and code of conduct. So part of that is updating many board policies that some have not been updated. So tonight I'm going to bring you 3 of them, and the next few months we'll bring you a few more as well. That just need updated to meet our vision and what we're trying to do with our students. So the first one is ADC, tobacco-free schools. As you can see from your board note, we want to extend this to obviously include vaping. As well as tobacco products. We need our tobacco and vape-free, both and other events. And obviously we'll also update that date once you approve it at the second.
Okay.
And on 80.
So basically including the
Yes.
okay.
And then when the next thing comes out, we'll update it again.
Right.
Okay.
Next is tobacco use by students, which is very similar to ADC. That's obviously for the public, this is for our students. Same thing, we want to include vape and vape products. And then streamline language in that last sentence for activities that are happening outside of the school day or building during extracurricular.
Did the other one have cigarettes? No, the student tobacco?
Cigarette and tobacco products.
Okay, but we're just being more specific.
Yeah, for students, we want to do a little more specific.
All that stays in there. That was in that, in the policy before.
Yes. We added a few more, really, I think we added it to it.
Okay.
To make it a little more specific. And the last one for the night on alcohol by students. So we want to make sure we include the same language as we did with the tobacco for all extracurricular activities. We included the word restorative to put our commitment to working with our students who do have or get caught with drugs or alcohol in the building. And then at the very bottom in your board notes, we did not understand the last line that was in there, so we just struck it out because we think we want to be a part of the solution to our students that are having an issue with drug and alcohol. On the original policy, so that the extent of the law didn't make this.
Yes. Any questions?
Yeah.
The next few months, we'll bring you a few more and then I'll talk about some of the information that we'll.
Okay.
Okay.
We will, later in the meeting, of course, we'll go for the first reading of these. So moving on, we're down to 6.07, transportation start and end time. And that will be Mr. Zoll and Mr. Simmons.
Yeah, so I'm gonna let Mr. Simmons kind of start it. So one of the things we're kind of tasked with in our department is transportation and our school buses. This time we're going to talk about some of the difficulties that we've had this year with transportation, and then we're going to kind of propose a solution to you that we came up with that we think can solve some of these issues.
Okay.
Right, so first off, I want to start real quickly and kind of define for me that may not know. In our world, we call them singles, doubles, triples. So a bus goes out, let's just say typically right now, picks up our middle school and high school kids, that's one run, that's a single. It then goes out and picks up kids at Fred or Blaze. That's considered a double run. And then what we're proposing is to start doing triples, which would be an additional run of picking up another school. So when we talk a little bit later about singles versus doubles versus triples, that's kind of what we're talking about in a sense here. So some of the challenges that we've had this year, we've lost 3 routes this year alone. Either have got turned in by the contractor or a driver just walked away, quit, whatever the case was. We've lost 3 this year. When I first started back in 21, we were actually down 8 contracts to begin with, 8 routes. And so currently this past summer, we were still short 4 of them. We have gained some of them back, but we're still short 4 contracts as a whole. We've also, again, starting in October, we had a driver who volunteers to do a triple for us. So since about late October, we have one driver who's currently already doing a triple for us. So she picks up her middle school, high school students. She goes to Blaze and Fred, drops off both students there at those schools. Those kids come in a little bit earlier to make that happen. And the principals have helped on that end, receiving those kids a little bit earlier. She then leaves there and then comes over on the west side over here and picks up Weston Centrals, and then again gets those kids into Weston Central a little bit late. She's actually kind of got it down pat now, and she's about 5 minutes later coming in, so they've been able to kind of really work with that. And then on the reverse end, she does the same thing going home. Takes her high school, middle school kids home, takes Blake and Fred kids home, and then she does the west side over here for Weston Central as well. So we've been doing a triple already at this point, just because a driver was walked away, and so we had no other choice. We've also had a real challenge this year with lack of buses for field trips, for athletic and extracurricular activities, to the point of where we've had, you guys just voted last month on a field trip to go to Wallace Island, and those teachers really wanted to go down earlier. They wanted to leave the middle school earlier and come back later. We can't do that in the world we're living in because I don't have bus drivers. They're currently taking the kids home or bringing the kids in. And so we don't have buses available. We don't have subs. There isn't a substitute for any of these bus drivers. And so we've had a challenge trying to get kids to field trips in a timely manner so that it's worth a kid paying the money to go on a field trip. We've also had, I know this past week, Mark Quillen and I have been working really hard with getting all the athletic events out. Last Thursday, I wanted to die because we had 5 teams leaving. All 5 teams were going away for an away event last week on Thursday. I don't have 5 buses available at 1 o'clock in the afternoon to take the teams. So we've had to double up teams. So we've sent 2 teams on a bus, 2 teams on a bus, and another bus. I've had to take some field trips and drive kids on a field trip. I've had to take kids for extracurricular activities as well. So we're trying to do all the things to make this work because there just aren't drivers. And there's a whole lot of reasons of why, but there's just not drivers. And so we've had a lot of issues with that. We've also had to, as much as we've not wanted to, we've had to send out some alert mail to say, we don't have a driver. We've had a driver who's gotten sick several times this year. And we've just had to call the parents ahead of time and as much notice as we can give them and say, if you get your kids here, we'll get them home. We'll figure out how to get them home. And between the drivers helping and shoving kids and moving kids and shuffling kids, we get them home, but it's not the easiest thing for parents, especially if we don't know about it until that morning. We just don't have a substitute. So we've had to do that this year as well. We've also, especially at our elementary levels, have had high numbers of kids on buses. And I challenge any of you to ride a bus with 72 kids behind you, and you're trying to drive with all the crazies on the road, because it is a challenging job to do. And our numbers at our elementary schools, we are averaging 60 to 72 kids on some of these buses. That means 3 butts in a seat. And we also know that some of our kids with 5, 3 kids in a seat is not conducive. And so you then, because they're so close, there's nobody helping monitor them. There's only 2 eyeballs facing forward and occasionally looking up in the mirror. We then have now more discipline referrals because of this. And so in talking about this and knowing that we've had some contracts handed in, we also know that in the world we're living in, we have a number of our drivers who what I would call are ready to age out. And rightly so. I'm going to use Don Oliver as an example. Mr. Oliver tells us every single year he's retiring. And thank God he's really not doing it because, but in all likelihood, he probably should retire because he deserves it. But he keeps hanging in there year after year after year with us. And he's willing to do that. So we know that this is only going to get worse. We don't see where it's going to get better. So I was challenged with coming up with what are some solutions? What are some other ways of doing this? And so one of the things we talked about, and Mr. Will talk about the process.
We kind of came up with a bunch of different options. We met with all of our building principals, met with all the drivers and contractors. We got feedback from staff through leadership team. We sent out a survey to the community. And we did some meetings with other transportation supervisors and the DV Education Association and came up with a plan is our proposed bus time for next year. So instead of only having the 2 runs, we really want to set up a 3. And so you see what those 3 are. Seabird Middle School and High School, which would start to drop off their students around 7:20, which is only 5 minutes earlier than they're dropping off now. Right now they drop off at 7:25. Those buses would go out and then go to Blaze and Fred out in the community, pick them up, and then drop them off at school at 8:05, and then go back out in the community again for West Seaford and Central Elementary. and then come and drop them off, and then at the end of the day, do the same thing. The times, as you see, you're not pushing back too far. Right now, the last pool is getting out. The buses leave about 3:45, 3:50. In the new presentation, they only leave at 3:45.
And you can see the color code, so that would be the single versus the double versus the triple, kind of how I did that in my head, so that you know. Now, we also know that we won't have to have every single bus doing a triple. We also know that we have some drivers who physically can't, they have other jobs, and so we know that we can only work with what we've got at that point, but.
It gives us some extra buses if we need them, if a bus needs off, then we won't be able to have to just cancel that bus route. So some of the positives we talked about from this, lower the number of students on the buses at the elementary level. Doesn't really change anything middle school and high school, but right now our middle school high school numbers are not too crazy. So we're not as worried about them. At this point, this will lower them to probably about an average of 30 to 40 students on the bus, which means a lot less students on the bus and a lot less distractions. The students on the buses will only be from one school, elementary. They'll be similar ages, so there'll be only K2 students on that bus or 3 to 5 students on that bus. Obviously, middle school and high school still has 6 to 12 on there. Shorter bus routes, so while they're leaving the school later, the routes will be a little bit shorter, so they won't really be getting home any later than they are now. I know that was one of those other things that the parents had come up with as a concern, but with the shorter bus routes, they won't be able to drop off later than they already are. Drivers can establish more rapport, as you see with administration, because they'll be driving for that school. So if there's a distillation on the bus, they might have to deal with that one school as well. Where right now, it's elementary student, they have to go to Blades and Fred to kind of figure out kind of where that student is and what's going on. And then, like we said earlier, we can better absorb. We'll also drivers and routes, triple runs. And then just a couple of pitfalls, kind of before we go to kind of questions. I would think we have to work on the drop off or parent drop offs that drive their students to school. It's at the same time. So West Seaford and Central, for instance, the start time is the same. We didn't know we'll have to extend drop off time a little bit after those two schools. So a parent can go to West and then go to Central and drop off without students being late to the school. The earlier starts in high school and later start times in elementary. I know no one wants to start earlier or start later, but right now there's not much of a choice in the sense of getting those buses on the road. And then civics in different schools will be on different buses. There's some that's a pitfall, but a lot of parents actually like the fact that kindergarten students will not be on the same bus as fifth graders. So you know, age.
And then just lastly, if we can't get the kids to school, I don't know how many programs you got at school. If we can't get them there, it's kind of hard to have a lot of things going on in the building that we can't get them to school. So this was a suggestion that we came up with, and we're not the only districts who are doing triples. Many of our districts, especially up north, they've been doing triples for years now. And so this is something that where we are, it's just kind of what we're dealing with. Questions?
So just a clarification on the proposed bus times, the column that says 22, 23, are those current drop-off times or current start?
Drop-off.
Drop-off time for school. So right now, our students in the high school get dropped off at 7:25, so buses open their doors at 7:25.
Okay,
And then students start leaving the buildings at 2:25.
Okay. So those are not start times.
No, those
No,
are
these are bus.
but the drop-off times for us.
These are bus drop-off times, and then on the reverse end of that, the Saturday or there, it would be the pickup times as well. Like the pickup time that would be 3:05, and the bus would be ready to pick up kids.
Okay.
At school.
So when students are going to enter the building and
Okay. Thank you.
we'll also have to adjust staff time a little bit. Based on it.
So an elementary student, the pickup time, like is 3:55 at the school. What's the approximate time that some of those are going to be getting home?
I mean, we're guessing the route's going to be the morning.
45 minutes to 50 minutes at the most. Most of our, especially our west and central routes, currently right now, there are shorter routes already because it's mostly in town routes. We do have some that go out, obviously, Line Road is an example. But west and central have typically more of the city kids in them. And so many of those runs may only be 30 minutes at most.
Westgate right now, the last drop off bus kind of going into the lot of roughly 4:45. And that will have to make sure as well. That'll be about the last drop.
Okay.
The other thing in this proposal is
I kind of figured it would be less than an hour.
yeah,
That's fine.
is that the kids, from Blades and Fred or West and Central, whichever way you wanna go with that, because they're not gonna be on the same button. So in other words, if I have a kindergartner and I have a fourth grader as a parent, I'm gonna have two different buses showing up at my house, because the kindergarten's gonna get on one and the fourth grader's gonna get on another. But it's also gonna be one of those things that kindergarten bus is only gonna go to that one school. So it's like currently what we do now, they go to Blaze and then Fred, and we kind of like travel across, the district. We won't be doing any of that. So those buses will go straight to either Blaze or Fred or West or Central. So they won't be sharing buses between the two.
What they pick is becoming around.
Yes.
So the new times don't affect school start times or school end times
You mean that?
for the students.
I mean, it could, it depends on how the school is running. Look, I mean, obviously, for Blades and Frederick Douglass, the school start time would be a little bit earlier. Because right now, they only start at 8.
Yeah, I don't know what the start times are. I think that's what I was asking.
So, Blades and West start at 8:30. We drop off at 8:30 currently right now. They go in the building and they're in school.
So there's no, because they're little, so there's no, when they go in, they go right to school.
Yes, they go-
There's no
Right to the
breakfast,
homeroom.
there's no,
I think all of our.
They do.
I think all of our right now, when they bus drop off, they go to the class.
okay.
And their breakfast for those guys is in the classroom.
It's in the classroom.
Okay, that's, that,
They make, like I know Central, they pick it up in the hallway and then take it
gotcha,
in.
that's what I mean.
And then Fred Douglass and Central are right now 8:45. So we drop off around 8:45, 15 minutes later for that.
Gotcha,
Going
okay,
across town.
Okay.
For that.
Right now, they're all of our schools, you'll see this, and they go right to the first, they're all,
Okay.
the first period, you know.
that's what I needed, thank you.
Anything else?
Nope.
So we will vote on this later. That's proposed one time. Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Simmons. All right, mathematics professional learning plan. I will turn that over to Dr. Hagley.
Thank you. Good evening. We're going to talk a little bit about our professional learning plan that we have for mathematics, K-12. And in Seaford, we really pride ourselves on being a learning community for both students and all of our educators in the district, that we are always learning from and with one another. And one of the things that we've worked on in Seaford also in the past couple of years is applying for reimagining professional learning grants. And we have gone for and been awarded these grants to support our professional learning in Seaford for the past several years. And we'd like to share some information with you tonight about the mathematics professional learning that we've done to really build continuity across our mathematics instruction in 12. Our agenda for tonight is to talk a little bit about our learning goals and focus for mathematics K-12. And we're just going to share a little bit about elementary, middle school, high school, and then we're going to talk a little bit about next steps. And I've got several people who are going to share this presentation with me today. But first I want to kind of frame this around our vision for mathematics instruction in Seaford. And this vision is really important because it communicates the district office commitment to success for all students in Seaford. And our vision includes our goals so that it is communicated consistently across the district about how we will develop the knowledge and skills and mindsets around instruction, mathematics in particular, in order to not only teach, but also lead and coach using our high quality instructional materials. And through this, we are going to provide all students with equitable access to strong instruction, rigorous assignments, and deep engagement opportunities. And all of our professional learning is aligned so that students have access to strong instruction and grade appropriate assignments and high expectations. Thank you. And in order to actualize that vision, we have some beliefs about teaching and learning in Seaford that have to do with curriculum, learning, the leadership, and the community. And as a district office, our professional learning plans are aligned to these teaching and learning beliefs. And so we try to have this be our focus. And I also wanted to make it clear that we believe that when we're making professional learning plans, that teachers have certain things that they need to do, and students have things that they need to do in the classroom. And these actions have to be included as part of our professional learning plans. I don't want to read all of these to you, but these are very ingrained into all of the decision-making that we have, and how we work together as a team with the school principals, the district office staff, and our teachers in our professional learning. They're very much part of our living conversations when we are working with our teachers. And with that, I am going to invite Krista to come up and share a little bit about our elementary math professional learning plan. Krista Ferdig is our curriculum instruction specialist, and she works primarily with mathematics and science on my team.
Hi, good evening. So in our elementary schools, we began the year with some summer IM trainings that were offered through the partnership with UD. They took place here at Seaford. And our elementary school teachers that were new and our Frederick Douglass elementary school teachers participated in a 3-day workshop for illustrative math. IM is the illustrative math curriculum in elementary. Our UD coaching partners are at all of our elementary schools. They're coaching in classrooms, facilitating professional learning opportunities to develop further content knowledge, support curriculum implementation, and support our school goals. We have UD coaches at all of our elementary schools. We have 2 special PL opportunities called Learning Labs at Blades Elementary and Central Elementary. What those are is those are intensive coaching partnerships. So we have a UD coach at Blades, and we have a partnership with Kristen Gray, who's one of the authors of the curriculum that we're using. And they are working in an intensive coaching situation with 3 teachers at each school. And they are developing these teachers in their practice, and they're working with the teachers to improve their practice. They're working on developing video lessons. We started to collect a lesson library. They're becoming model classrooms for our own Seaford teachers to visit and see the curriculum with our Seaford students and our Seaford teachers in action. And we've also become a model classroom for other teachers from outside of the district. We've hosted a few different districts who've come to see what great IM teaching looks like. So that's been a great opportunity for us to learn and also to show the amazing work that we're doing here. We've developed a math leadership team across the district, K-12. So there are team leaders, grade level leaders that meet with me on a regular basis to talk about curriculum and practice, do practice, learn things, do book studies, work on pacing guides, work on our DBIs together. So we've started to do this collaboration across grade levels and across the district. We're working on a building thinking classrooms study right now. It's work by Peter Liljedahl. We're doing a PL and book study on that. Just some really great teaching practices that work really nicely with our IM curriculum to help get our students actively thinking. And then we've been participating in a lot of math socials. This is an opportunity for us to get together with math educators across the state. Socially, we do math together, we connect, we meet people so that we can communicate and talk with them
and see what's working out there across the state and bring practices back to Seaford. This is just a couple pictures of our summer institute. We held a big Seaford Rock conference for our elementary teachers on our PD day. It was a perfect blend of curriculum equity, PL, SEL, PL, teacher self-care, and we did have a whole lot of fun. It was really a great experience. The workshops many were led by our very own Seaford educators. We are really about building our internal capacity for leadership, and our teachers are amazing, and we want to start lifting them up and elevating them. So many of our own teachers presented workshop sessions.
And just so you know, that Secret Rocks conference was not only about mathematics. It had aspects of math and literacy and a variety of things, but several of the sessions were about math. So we have several people from Secret Middle School that we really wanted to highlight the work that they've done because they really shine. So Mr. Katie and Dr. Brown are here to really kind of share about the work that they've done at Secret Middle School.
So thank you for a few moments. I'll try to be brief. I get yelled at all the time whenever I stand in front of the board, start presenting, I get a little long-winded. So I'm gonna stop talking here in a minute, let my people talk as well. So 5 years ago, I took over the middle school and came into with mathematics especially. We were still printing pages. We were still assigning 1 through 17 odd for homework. We were in year 1 of IM implementation. In that 5 years, we've 10 teachers in that program. There are 3 still remaining who are still with us at this time because we had to find the right people to get the job done. And so I think from that standpoint, we've come a long way. We're getting more stability in the program. Kelly actually said a mission and reimagining grant that played a big role in what we're doing in our school. That's where Amy's come in the last 2 years. Amber has been here with me as the math coach all 5 years. And so that has been, and truly in the first couple of years, she was the math coach / at times my assistant principal, and we had other issues going on at the school to try to help get us through some tough times as well. But she's just done an incredible job in terms of building the math program. Has it always made scores go boom? No, we're starting to see some growth now. We saw a lot of growth in the last year, and I'm going to let them start talking a little bit about that because they are truly the experts in the day-to-day.
So a lot of our professional learning is consistent with what the elementary teachers were provided with. Our middle school teachers, a few of them have opted to join the building thinking classroom book study. A couple of them gone to math socials. But we really have been focusing our time and our effort and our partnership on the time that we have with them during the school day. So here's our journey over the last 5 years. We're really just going to focus on our presentation tonight these last 2 years. We've built an amazing partnership with Amy from the University of Delaware, and she has really come in and supported me in the work that I'm doing and allowed me to support teachers even more so than what we were doing before. So we did start IM implementation 5 years ago. It feels like with COVID happening, we are back at year 1 next year. Teaching kids how to learn how to do school again. And with that, also having teachers relearn how to engage students who were very resistant to engaging, especially in math. So we're kind of at like a mock year 1, year 2. Our big focus over the last 2 years has been supporting teachers through deep planning practices. So really getting their mindset around what it means to be planned for solid math instruction. And then also on the other side of that, when I go in to present or instruct, how am I going to get these students to engage and start really working on those engagement strategies? Over the last couple of years, we've really worked strategically with our admin team, with members from district office, to align all of the work that we're doing and streamline everything for our teachers and for our students. So these are our RPL grant goals, and everything that we do kind of aligns itself back to those and grounds our work. We had walkthroughs this year that we hadn't had previously, and actually received feedback from district office. So that was a layer added to all of the system, which was really nice because we're in it all the time. And so a fresh set of eyes coming in to give us some different perspectives, the different things to think about was a definite added bonus. We have kind of realigned all of our PLC work. So Jess has been a huge part of that work. Also, Natasha Waters, my ELA counterpart, and making sure that the work that we're doing in PLC makes a difference for student outcomes. And then, real quick, the frequent and consistent coaching cycles is the part of this system that we're going to focus on and let you know kind of the work that we've done the last couple of years. And throughout all of these things, we, including the admin team, have been collecting and analyzing data to make sure that what we're doing is getting us on the path that we need to be on. If things aren't working, we don't just keep doing them. We've taken a step back, we've reevaluated, and we've ditched things if they weren't working. We've created new tools if the one we were using wasn't working. So we've done a lot of work in all of these different areas just to make our math program that much stronger. We're going to focus on that coaching cycle, which is where Amy and I spent a lot of our time this year. So some important information to know about what a formal coaching cycle is. We are very fortunate at our middle school because it is not the case in a lot of middle schools across our state where our teachers have common planning. So all of our 6th grade math teachers have the same planning period, which is nice. They can meet together, they can collaborate and plan these lessons. And it also makes it a lot easier for us to come in and support more teachers at one time. So this formal coaching cycle happens 2 times a month. We meet at a grade level, and it's a 3-day cycle. So the first day we meet with each grade level and we very deeply plan the next day's lesson. On day 2, Amy and I go in with a specific focus that the teacher selects and start collecting data and just some observational notes and feedback during their time in the classroom. And then on day 3, we meet with that grade level again and provide feedback for them. We give them the data that they asked us to collect, and they reflect on moves that they made, how their student engagement was, were they able to get the math goal out of that lesson that was intended. One thing that I think has been a huge part of the success of this coaching cycle is our admin will come in and just sit down and do the math with us. They are an active part of these meetings. They're in our planning sessions, they pop into classrooms when we're in there to see the same things we're seeing. So when we debrief with teachers, they understand what it is that we saw, or yep, I saw that too. And then also a huge piece of, I think the success that we're starting to see and the confidence in some of these kids that we're starting to see is the capacity that we began to build in our special ed co-teachers. So they are also included in all of these coaching cycles. They plan with us. We watch specific teaming classes so that we're watching their teaching practices as well, and also providing them with feedback.
I think the only thing that Amber didn't say is there is time for in the moment, real-time coaching or modeling. Amber's a master at that. She won't like when I say that, but there's a trust that has been built in the community that the teachers are comfortable with Amber stepping in, and some of them are even comfortable with me stepping in and either doing a quiet aside in the middle of a class or even just taking over. And sometimes the teacher will just look at one of us and say, where do I go from here? Because like they're not getting out of it, and just jump in and do that. And that takes a lot of prep to do that. And but it's a very important part of the coaching cycle. So this is where kind of I came in here. Amber and I met at the beginning of last school year, and we developed a really incredible working relationship. And this year we spent a lot of time planning and working through and refining this model that we've been using for deep specific lesson planning discussions. I didn't design this, I did do my dissertation on this, but this comes from the work of Russ Stein and Witherspoon. This idea of if we plan deeply for mathematics, if we know the mathematical point of the lesson, if we really think about student thinking, if we anticipate the strategies that they're going to use or the pitfalls that they might fall into, and then we choose pedagogical moves that help us to support them, what kinds of mathematical routines or instructional routines or math language routines are we going to use to really be able to elicit student thinking, to build on it, and then to extend it. That's really what we spent a good deal of time doing. And Amber has been a phenomenal thought partner. I've created tools, she's made them better. I mean, it's really been great.
So the first part of this, before we meet with grade level teams, is Amy and I would sit down and we would independently first and then collaboratively de-plan these lessons. So we anticipated, just like we're asking teachers to do, what they're going to come to the table with, what concerns are they going to bring about student thinking or anticipated misconceptions. Are there any strategies that we really want to come out of this discussion when we plan? And if it doesn't come out from the teachers, how are we going to make sure that it comes out? So we took a lot of time on the front end to do all of this work before meeting with teachers, and we linked our planning tool that we kind of landed on throughout the course of the year. It's there, and it has a lot of prompting questions for us to keep us focused and help us think about prompting questions for the teachers to get them the information out that they need to know. So then we sit down with the teachers, and there's a separate teacher planning tool that we pushed out to them that has some really great thought-provoking questions on it. At different places in IM, there's different types of thinking that are required from students. And it's really important, as now we're in year 5 with some of our teachers, that we're pushing them to think about where are students on this journey of learning this math goal. And so we started to look at this year, are we eliciting student thinking? Are we building on student thinking? Or are we at a point where we need to start extending it? Those were some hard conversations in the beginning. Our teachers have done a really nice job of starting to break down each task and how it connects to the learning goal, and starting to make those connections on their own. We don't have to do as much prompting now. We pretty much at the end of the year found ourselves sitting back and these conversations were very naturally happening, which was cool to see.
Part of that, I think, is the discussion of making sure that they know, what they're doing, why they're doing it, when's a good time to do it, those types of things. Really building capacity. It goes back to what, Kristen, you were saying earlier this evening about building capacity.
So over time, some of the things that we've noticed is that we have built a much stronger collective understanding of the trajectory of math over these IM units within each grade level. We also have a lot of opportunities on our PL days to have some vertical conversations. So we have 7th grade teachers talking to 6th grade teachers about, when you guys are teaching ratios and proportions, what is it that they're coming to me with? It's definitely less silo-ish and much more of a collaborative. No one is afraid to ask a question or push each other's thinking at this point. Teachers have made instructional decisions based on where students are and where their thinking is. Before, all of the decisions, I think, were coming from this feeling of a time crunch. These IM lessons are tough to get through in the schedule that we run. They're hard for any middle school to get through. There's a lot in them. And when you get student engagement, it's easy to get stuck in that discussion, because people get so excited that their students are contributing and they're having these rich discussions. And so what we've seen is now teachers are being very intentional and very strategic about who's thinking they're displaying or who's thinking they're sharing out, in order to keep that discussion moving forward so that more and more students are able to attain that end goal. Goal focused and student centered. And I think the biggest difference I've seen from the beginning of last year until right now is the increased student ownership of their learning. Students have really come a long way with the communities that we've built in our math classrooms. They are taking risks. They are asking questions when they need to. They are challenging each other's thinking. They're building on each other's thinking. So hopefully with all of these things continuing to grow and progress over time, we'll start to see that shift in student outcomes on our bigger assessments. So we did a reflection with our teachers a couple of weeks ago, and I just wanted to highlight some of their thoughts and feelings. The questions that we asked were, how have your planning practices changed? And then also, how have your instructional practices changed over the last 2 years as a result of the work that we're doing? And so these are their thoughts and reflections.
And so we just thought that, you know, as we talked and we debriefed this, because Amber has done a lot of work that she does behind the scenes too. Every time we go to a classroom observation, we would talk about and debrief with each other what we saw and where we're going to build on that and how we're going to do the debriefing. All of that took some time, but you know, it was something that we were committed to, and we think we should build on this next year. We absolutely need to continue that planning, that deep mathematical discussions, deep and specific, you know, getting to those mathematical points, modeling those ambitious teaching and learning practices, some co-teaching, and this idea of the cruising clipboard, that getting teachers to realize that the work time when kids are working is not really a time to go around and help individual students. At that moment, it's really to collect data. What is their thinking? Where are they now? How can I sequence student thinking in the discussion that's going to follow in 2 minutes, so that every student gets this opportunity to really engage in mathematics in a meaningful way. And so I think this is like kind of some of our next steps that we've been thinking about.
And with that, I'd like to invite Krista. Thank you so much, Stanford Middle School. Hopefully you got a good flavor of some of the work that they've been doing. They've done some really incredible things to advance mathematics. And we also did a lot of work at Cedar High School. And so Krista has worked with the student there, and I'm going to ask her to share just a little bit about what they've done.
A lot of these are the same as the elementary and middle school. They did also have the summer training opportunity with UD. They are working with Michelle, their UD coach, who's phenomenal. She works with the teachers regularly, facilitates PL to further develop their content knowledge and to support their teacher growth. We have a new instructional coach, Lori Smith, who is coaching all of the departments and all of the curriculum across the school, and she has also dug in deep with our math department as well. So she partners with Michelle to deliver PLs, and our UD coach is not in town. They also began some work with building and thinking classrooms. Many of them have joined our math leadership team, and they are also participating in the math socials and connecting with teachers across the state. One of their big goals is increasing student engagement with HQIM. And in this picture here, you'll see this is one of the building thinking classroom strategies. It is called vertical non-permanent surfaces, otherwise known as whiteboards. You will see them writing on, I don't have a picture here, windows, anything that they can write on while standing up and they can easily erase. And Peter Liljedahl's research, 15 years of research, says just that one thing can activate their learning so much. So they are implementing this across the district. They are utilizing a lot of different strategies and working with Michelle to increase our student engagement. So if you're walking through the schools and you see the students writing on the windows, there's a very purposeful reason for that. Oh, here they are. I haven't had one. Here they are working on the windows. Here they're writing on the windows at the elementary school as well. The building thinking classrooms strategies are K to 12, writing on the windows. There are these vertical surfaces that we can order. We don't have enough whiteboards everywhere. We can stick them up anywhere. So they're starting to appear all over the place. It's really great. The idea behind it is one student has a marker, not all students, and they all have to talk to each other and have that student kind of draw the same thing out. And then the teacher kind of facilitates the marker change and people get different times to draw and they're given quality thinking tasks on these vertical surfaces. And another big feature is they're placed in random groups, visibly random groups, not like the random groups our teachers say they have, but really we were strategic in them. But visually random groups, like pulling popsicle sticks or something like that, and kids are working with different students, helping them to really think about working well with everybody, but also sometimes our students have a certain status in a math classroom. Either they believe they're good at math, not good at math, or if they get partnered with this person, well, I don't really have to talk so much because she's really good at math. The random groupings has started to kind of break those ideas of status. And all students are beginning to see themselves as mathematicians. So it's been a great addition to our practices. We K to 12, many of us went to the NCTM regional conference. Kristen Johnson from our high school actually presented at the regional conference. So that was wonderful. And we had K to 12 teachers and administrators go ahead at that conference too. So that was a great experience.
I would say too, I just want to add that her presentation was one of the fullest presentations at that conference. There was standing room only. And I think that the research that she presented on about engagement post-pandemic was just a topic that people were really, really interested in. And it was about equity discussions post-pandemic. It was really interesting.
And then we just are continuing across the district to develop our professional community. Those are some teachers getting together on a random Tuesday evening to do some together. So. See?
And I just want to conclude our presentation to kind of share with you and really drive home how we plan very intentionally our professional learning to ensure that Seaford is a comprehensive learning community. Our teachers, our students, even all the way up to district office staff, principals, and our superintendent, we're all learning together. We walk and do district learning walks around all of our schools, and we share information together. And our goals are always around equitable practices, around data-driven instruction, and increasing student achievement, but in research-based ways. Our next steps as a district is also we submitted another Reimagining Professional Learning Grant, which I anticipate, I'm really hopeful that we're going to get because we have all the best ideas. And one of which is to expand the math lab classroom model of professional learning. This is a model that I really have researched and found a lot of evidence in that it is creating model classrooms in our district that can be lifted up for educators to go in and observe exceptional teaching. It's developing teacher leaders and it's building the capacity of individual teachers so that then they can coach others. It's one of a kind of a long-term plan that while we love our partnership with UD, we don't know that we're always going to be able to sustain it. And so that we can develop our own internal capacity for our teachers to coach each other. Part of that is promoting strategic teacher collaboration. And we really want to focus on this idea of our student collaborative learning. Because we have a belief that when students are talking to each other, not only does it create a more joyful learning experience for students, but we also have a very multilingual community here in Seaford. And students learn content and they learn language at the same time. The only way to do that is if they're talking with each other. So I think that concludes the presentation. I hope that you learned a little bit. This is all of us. And I'm glad that it worked out for tonight because I heard in your board that you have a goal of learning more about instruction. And so here we go. We start.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions?
I just have one question. First of all, thank you for the presentation. Second, have you been able to track, or is your plan to track the correlation between your coaching and their formal observation?
So you mean like the actual DTGSS observations of our educators and the coaching that they receive from both our internal coaches and University of Delaware, to kind of clarify your question,
Yeah.
right? So we do have conversations with our coaches, with our administrators. And one of the things that I didn't include in our presentation was the administrative, and I realized afterwards that I didn't include it in here. A big part of our professional learning plan is administrative PLCs, in which we have UD coaches and myself co-facilitate professional learning opportunities for all of our principals, in which we look at the learning that teachers are receiving as part of their coaching. We look at that and we try to calibrate with DTGSF, which is our evaluation system. And we all together walk through classrooms looking for those items. So for example, we've taken the DTGSF rubric, and one of the big focus areas, like I mentioned, was student discourse, right? So then we said, well, what does discourse look like in mathematics? And so we went into Seaford High School and we walked around all together, K-12. So Principal of Blades walked around at Seaford High School and looked for student discourse. And then we normed on, well, what does it look like? What should it look like within the lens of our HQIM, which is illustrative mathematics K-12, right? And so what systems and routines would you expect to see that are common from, I mean, even from a kindergarten lesson all the way to a 12th grade lesson, we use common routines and systems in the classroom. There's always a warm up, there's a cool down. They move through the lessons in a very similar and structured way. And the expectations for student discourse are very similar. And so that was one of the ways that I would say we kind of integrate the DTGSF framework into our coaching cycle. But I also will say that we want to maintain the relationship and the partnership between the coaches, right? So like the work that Amber and Amy does, to call them out because they're right here, is personal and private between the teacher, right? And they want to make sure that they have that professional, but also the relationship that the teacher can say, I really need to work on this. And the vulnerability, that's the word I was looking for. Mm-hmm. The ability to be vulnerable and say, I really know that I have to work on this. My data is showing that I have to work on this. How can you help me to get better without feeling the external evaluative component of it?
Oh, I understand that completely. My question was, have you been able to track it yet? Have you seen teachers grow DTGSS based on your coaching?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is 100%. We have definitely seen educators who, like I can think of a teacher at the high school who in particular had gotten some feedback from his administrator that he needed to grow in certain areas, you know, and then he reached out for support from the coaches. improved on those specific things, and then when the administrator went back in, they saw growth. And then they gave them the next step, right? Because
Right.
whenever we talk with teachers, you know, there's a continuous improvement. So if you grow on one thing, then you're not done.
Correct.
There's the next level thing, so then they continue to work on it. That's how that cycle works.
Got it. Good. Yeah, I'm an instructional coach, so I get that
Yeah.
part, but I was just, wondering about the data. and
Oh, yeah.
The forward thinking.
We
data.
are
So that's good to
definitely
hear. That's
seeing the data,
that's
and we're
good to
seeing really great feedback from the teachers too.
Gotcha.
That they're valuing this kind of
Good.
professional work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great questions.
Thank you, Dr. Heckman. And all of the assistants, thank you so much for that informative presentation. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, we're ready to move on to our agenda action items. And the first one is 7.01 school choice. You have in your information, you have 4 applications that we are going to vote on in just a second, rescinding the school choice. We cannot mention any names. Does anyone have any questions before we move on?
No questions.
All right, recommended action is to approve rescinding school choice 2022-23-11, 2021-22-54, 2018-19-40, and 2018-19-41 as presented.
This is Jeff Benson. I make a motion that we approve rescinding school choice applications to 2022-23-11, 2021-22-54, 2018-19-40, and 2018-19-41 as presented.
There's a second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve rescinding school choice 2022-23-11, 2021-22-54, 2018-19-40, and 2018-19-41 as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Field trips. You have a field trip agenda. And I believe there is one field trip on that agenda for the high school Seaford Comprehensive Program. And the field trip is on May the 23rd, going to Shorebird Stadium. Students will work on their social skills. Any questions?
Ms. Simmons says we have a bus over there.
I hope they have a bus. Recommended action is to approve the field trip agenda as presented.
Tim Hopkins, I move that we approve the field trip agenda as presented.
Marcus Ryder, second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the field trip agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 7.03 is facilities request. On that agenda, you will see we have, I believe, 3 items for the use of our facilities. One is James H. Groves Adult High School Adult Basic Education classes. Second one is Sussex Technical District Adult ESL classes. And the third one is Sussex Tech Family Lit Program. Does anybody have any questions on those?
Yeah.
Recommended action is to approve the facilities request agenda as presented.
Marcus Ryder, move to approve the facilities request agenda as presented.
Kim Hopkins, a second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the facility request agenda as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next item is 7.04, request for proposals, Blake Elementary School roof. Mr. Henry, you want to say a few words before we vote on that? So I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Henry.
So basically, guys, this is, the next step in our ESSER funding. So, we want to go ahead and put a silicone coating on the roof at Lakes. We've already, done infrared study, and the study came back and there's 3 wet spots in a total. So that's like really good news. Small wet spots of that. So those have to be removed, and then we can put a silicone coating on them, which will give us another 15-year warranty on that road. And by the way, that'll bring all the elementary schools back under warranty and their roads until like 2033, 2034.
That's great.
So that, yeah, that's a good spot to be great. And in the high school, we do have some old roofing over there that we're gonna need to address in the near future. But that puts in a pretty good spot on that. Do you have any questions? So basically what I sent you guys was the project summary, and that's the pre-bid meeting date, the bid due date, and construction projected construction start and end dates on those. And then Burning Daniel will be our architects also, because they were already passed to the RFP for S. So they'll be the architect on the job. Any questions?
No.
You said the wet spots were small and
Very small, very, very.
so what approximately is the total square footage of those spots?
Less than maybe 300-400 square feet
Okay.
of material have to be removed and replaced. So we're in a really good spot there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
No.
All right, thank you, Mr. Henry. Recommended action is to approve the request for proposals Blades Elementary School roof as presented.
This is Darren Savage. I move to approve the request for proposal of Blades Elementary School roof as presented.
Kim Hopkins, I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the request for proposals Blades Elementary School roof as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 7.05 is the transportation start and end times that was presented to us earlier. Any other questions on those? Recommended action is to approve the transportation start and end times as presented.
I have one quick question,
Okay.
just for clarification. Ms. Simmons, when you guys were talking about the transportation, does that affect the special programs, like the A and the O?
Triples, no. So
Okay,
it will, the special programs will stay very similar to what they are now. Now, pre-K will be a little different. Dr. D is aware of that as well. Pre-K will look a little different next year, but the rest of the programs, we're going to try to keep them similar to what we're doing. We may have to have currently like what we do now, where the one bus, like autism students goes to Blade and then Fred, we may have to now separate it. So one bus picks up Blade kids and one bus picks up the Fred kids.
okay, that's what I was wondering, only because I know any disruption in structure with the special programs is, so,
They're trying to keep it as similar as possible
okay.
to not disrupt that.
The times though will align with the new school times though, because in order to go to related arts or specials
Right.
or lunch, inclusion opportunities.
So specifically for those changes, will the families like be notified that their, children may have to get up earlier or?
As quickly as possible as, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Ms. Tompkins. Anything else? So it's been moved to second, right?
No.
Okay, I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
All right, thank you. Okay. All right, recommended action is to approve transportation start and end times as presented.
Jeff Benson, I move that we approve transportation start any times as presented.
Marcus Rivers, second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve transportation start and end times as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Seven point oh six is on the tobacco-free schools policy ADC. This is the first reading. It's the one that Mr. Zoll, or could be one of several here in a minute, that he's talked about. So this is the first one. Recommended action is to approve the first reading of policy ADC, tobacco-free schools as presented.
Darren Savage, I move to approve the first reading of policy ADC tobacco-free schools as presented.
Kim Hopkins, I second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the first readings of policy ADC, tobacco-free schools as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 7.07 is policy JICG, tobacco use by students. Recommended action is to approve the first reading of policy JICG, tobacco use by students as presented.
Kim Hopkins, I move that we approve the first reading of policy JICG, tobacco use by students as presented.
Jeff Benson, second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the first reading of policy JICG, tobacco use by students as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 7.08 is the drug and alcohol use by students. Recommended action is to approve the first reading of policy JICH, drug and alcohol use by students as presented.
Marcus Ryder, move to approve the first reading of policy JICH, drug and alcohol use by students as presented.
Sarah Savage, second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the first reading of policy JICH, drug and alcohol use by students as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, moving on to 7.09. This will be a group of policies that we heard about. It had the first reading last month. So the first one is policy GBAA, sexual harassment. Recommended action is to approve the second reading of policy GBAA, sexual harassment as presented.
Jeff Benson, I move that we approve the second reading of policy GBAA, sexual harassment presented.
Marcus Ryder, second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the second reading of policy GBAA, sexual harassment as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 7.10 is policy JIIA, Seaford School District Title IX. Recommended action is to approve the second reading of policy JIIA, Seaford School District Title IX as presented.
Sarah Savage, I move to approve the second reading of policy JIIA, Seaford School District Title IX as presented.
Kim Hopkins, I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the second reading of policy JIIA, Seaford School District Title IX as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 7.11 is policy DM, cash in schools and buildings. Recommended action is to approve the second reading of policy DM, cash in schools / buildings as presented.
Marcus Ryder, move to approve the second reading of policy DM, cash in schools and buildings as presented.
Jeff Benson, second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the second reading of policy DM, cash in schools / buildings as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. 7.12 is financial reports. So I will turn the floor over to the podium to Mrs. Brennan to go over our monthly financial reports.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So in terms of our operating unit expenses, since our last meeting, we have 83.3% of the fiscal year having been completed. We've encumbered or spended actually about $364,000 less than last month. And that is because we have went through and recoded, taken advantage of every single opportunity where we can possibly switch fund any expenses as we near the end of the fiscal year. Some of that, one example would be tuition. You know, we are targeting things locally, and then before we close out the end of the fiscal year, instead of doing it every single payroll, we go ahead and we do a payroll adjustment for those staff. So it's abnormal, but we did go down. In terms of our, if you go to the second slide, in terms of our tax collection, we have collected about $56,000 since April. This reflects 101.87%. Next month, we will get in our final tax payment, but we will also be getting in a portion of our senior property tax and our disabled veterans. So that will help us continue to push above and beyond our 100%. Our set asides have not changed since last July. At the next meeting, there will be discussion about the possibility of reallocating funds into the set aside. And then finally, the monthly revenue. So in terms of state funds, there were just over $66,000 that came in from state transportation. In terms of local funds, we had $518,000 come in. Of this, 351 was from cafeteria salaries. The remainder of them were debt service, general expense, and other match taxes. And then finally, we have not had any change since the last meeting in terms of federal funds.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you, Mrs. Brennan. This is an action item. Recommended action is to approve the monthly financial reports as presented.
Kim Hopkins, move that we approve the monthly financial reports as presented.
Tara Savage, second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the monthly financial reports as presented. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And that finishes up our action items. Moving on to number 8, long range agenda. And that is on the screen already.
Yep.
It is a long range agenda. It's the correct adjective to be used right there. There are a lot of things happening. And to end up this school year. So I am not going to read all that. I'll give you a second or two to look at it.
Come on.
Have any questions? I mean, one of the big, or a couple of two big events, of course, are the bridge walk for middle school, which will be held in the high school, and also graduation on June 2nd, correct? And of course, one that's probably important to students is the last day of school. And we will be back in here on June the 20th. Anybody have any questions?
I just have one, Dr. Dave, for the high school project service graduation, is it open
It
for
is,
people to attend like previously?
yes.
Okay.
And I haven't gotten an email invitation yet, but I will send that to you when I get it.
Awesome, thank you.
It'll be at the hospital.
Yeah,
That's what I was
it's on
gonna-
here. Yeah, it's on here.
Is that on there? Because I thought I read that somewhere.
Yes,
I'm gonna make sure that's where it
I just want to
was.
make sure we can go.
Okay.
I am out of town that day, so that would be lovely if you could go.
And that is at 10 a.m. I think I already marked it on my other calendar. All right. Any other questions?
No.
All right, moving on, we need to go into executive session for personnel matters and legal updates and student matters. I need a motion to move to executive session.
Marcus rather move into executive session.
Kim Hopkins, a second.
It's been moved and seconded to move to executive session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And the time is 7:47 p.m.